I'm here because I actually think this is a very critical time in our industry. I know there's tumultuous change going on, but I'm going to talk to you with someone who's spent all 26 years of his life working in agencies and clients across the globe. A lot of that time in Europe, a lot of time in Asia, and now much time in North America, and I can tell you it's all the same. Every single little difference and nuance in every country which should be respected doesn't change the fact that there is a fundamental problem with what's going on out there. And I think it's time to stop pretending. Here I am, the agency guy in front of you, and I've got to tell you, this is FUBAR. This is a situation which, if it continues, will erode the value of the brands that many of you work for. I had the pleasure to run a wonderful recruiting session for our agency last Saturday, or now 10 days ago, I guess, in our New York office. We had 18 brilliant college graduates in our offices competing for 9 spots. Most of them Ivy League grads with 3.5 GPAs. They'd all been presidents of this and captains of the track team. They'd all done all these things that just make me shudder if I had had to try to go back and get into school now, and they were only 22 years old. And I was sitting there asking myself, would I really tell them to go into this business? Would I encourage my son, who's of a similar age, to follow in his father's footsteps? And so before I answer that question, how many of you, just a show of your hands, are in the marketing services industry, not client side, but agency side in the room? Keep your hands up for a second. Now, I'd say we've got 15% of the audience, and the glaring lights don't help with that rapid polling mechanism. But how many of you would tell your children to follow in your footsteps? Keep your hands up if that's the case. That's good news. There's still hope. Not all the hands stayed up. So it is a moment of great change. I do believe the agency relationship is broken. There are a lot of reasons for that, and we'll go into this. But we need to try to fix it simply because agencies play such a critical role in developing the very brands, products, and services we all talk about, and potentially a much bigger role than they did before. In fact, I will go so far as to postulate that you may need to fire your agency. And I would say that to our clients as well. Either figure out a way to get true value out of that relationship, or frankly, get rid of them. And don't necessarily hire another one. That's another piece of news, and we'll go on and talk about that. Forrester did a great job summarizing this up. I'm not going to give you a lot of big wordware this morning. I promise only these 3 charts. But they've given us kind of a nice framework to talk about agencies and what they do. The brand era, I know I wasn't around then. It really talked about the first launch of brands, the distribution of magazines, the brands became something, trademarks were launched. Then we have what they now affectionately call the Mad Men or Don Draper era. Everything was about the big idea, and as we've seen, for those of you who enjoy the show, usually that big idea is invented somewhere between the time the client gets in the elevator on the ground floor and shows up in the conference room on the top floor. There's lots of drinking and cigarettes involved, and that's got to be good. And now here we are in the internet era. Actually, this is last year, because now we're in 2010. It's a new decade, and perhaps it's all changed. But I love the little chart in the bottom right-hand corner. It says, specialists and traditionalists tried to compete for the same dollars. That's actually factually incorrect. They're competing for less dollars, and that's part of the problem. The pressure is immense. So there's evidence that this relationship is broken, and the New York PD helped me out with the sign. 46% of clients have been engaged with their agencies for 2 years or less. So as you think about the continuity and about the fact that brands need to sustain their value, many of those relationships, almost 50%, are in the hands of people who have not been engaged for a very long time. In fact, I recently read that now that the recession is over, that the speed with which agencies are going to be put under pitch is going to increase because it's a sign of good times. I guess people were frozen last year. I know I was. And so now that times are quote-unquote good again, what's going to happen is that we're going to create volatility. Interesting. The average CMO tenure is 28.4 months. I don't know how long Jeff was at Kodak, but I know that this is another interesting fact. So the agencies change relationships every couple of years. The CMOs come in, and if they don't make their mark in 6 months, well, they may not be there for 12. And if that wasn't enough to create all this volatility with brands being the victims, let's make sure the agency personnel turn over as well, because that can add a nice ingredient to it. So it is a little bit crazy. My resume alone is witness to the incredible volatility in this. And so I'm not trying to be the pot calling the kettle black here, but what we have is this very volatile system where once in a while, something really wonderful, great creativity with no compromises, to use Jeff's term, which I agree with, comes out. But trust me, in New York, on quote unquote Madison Avenue, we're actually on Lexington, between Lexington and 3rd, but the change, the volatility, and the compromises are there every day. And this is a big problem. And I think we need to be serious. I said, let's take our heads out of the sand. Let's actually be honest with one another. There are better ways to create value. As businessmen, aren't we really here just to do that, than what we're doing today? Account movement. Accounts with media spend of 20 million or more that launched reviews or shifted. As I told you, this is going to pick up now because things are looking better. And once again, I'm not sure that change is always good as much as it can be exciting. So then we get to the really wonderful part of this business, the procurement process. This is actually far more organized than most pitches. The procurement process is bizarre. Let's call up, visit 6 to 10 companies we don't really know very well, ask them to fill out the longest, most mind-numbing questionnaire designed to prove that at some point in that agency, someone did not invent the newest space shuttle to go to Mars. And then let's get together as a team and determine who's going to be in the finals or the semifinals, or these days it's usually the quarterfinals, in a process that will last 6 months. RFPs, requests for proposals, land on my desk like leaves in the autumn, and I'm not sure how they help our potential clients choose us as an agency. But clients have figured out a way to solve that. They now hire consultants to help them in the pitch process. So those consultants know theoretically which agencies are good and which agencies are bad and which ones are properly aligned, and they drive this process. This is actually structural insanity in our industry. And the problem is agencies want new business. Why? Because with all that change, there is a somewhat revolving door problem. Clients come and go, agencies come and go, and we need new business. We did something, I made a decision when I became the general manager of MRM in New York that people are still shaking their heads at. We stopped pitching business. I shut down the pitch machine. Our director of business development was hospitalized because of this. He couldn't believe it. I said, we're actually going to get our shit together. We're going to get more organized. We're going to get more scalable. We're going to serve the clients we have for 6 months. Now, I have to leave right after this speech because June is almost over. And they've got to go out and pitch more business. But the point here is that agencies are in this process, and clients are culpable because without clients trying to change agencies, agencies don't pitch, in which we endlessly pretend that we're ready to pitch business.